Okay, so I'm refuting Robert Baird. Bard?
Yeah, Baird.
Robert Baird's speech about drones. And so his main claim is that remotely piloted aircraft are the most effective and humane solution for continuing to project air power and defend American troops while allowing for the protection of the pilots. So first off, I'd like to state in his first claim alone, he talks about the humane solution. I think he misspoke on that because I don't think dropping bombs on anybody or spying on anybody is something humane. Maybe he thinks safe for the American pilots, but for the troops as well, this leads into another issue. This is involving a friendly fire attack. So what happened was, according to the LA Times, a Marine and a Navy medic were hit by a drone strike that was right outside of base. And so usually what happens sometimes in battle when you're getting bombarded from all sides at a base, they'll literally just drop bombs like on the exterior of the base and hope they don't get hit. But this instance, actually, they were targeting terrorists, and they were looking through the cameras, and they were uncertain if it was terrorists or if it was friendlies, and they ended up shooting and killing them. So that's an unfortunate instance, because if you have eyes on the ground, like human eyes, you're usually going to be able to tell if someone's, in like a headdress or if someone's in a, actual soldier uniform. So one of his, I wanted to go over another definition that he brought up. So the definition of a UAV. A UAV is any U.S. military aircraft modified or designed to be operated without an onboard pilot, but instead via data link from a ground station. So data links. We're in an age right now where technology is booming, internet's booming, hacking is right there with it. We've obviously heard a lot about hacking stuff, Apple, maybe the Hillary Clinton emails, whatever it may be. It's possible for anything to get hacked, whether it be the most secure government security websites or whatever it may be, intelligence, it can get hacked. So if you have a data link going to a plane, what if, say, Russia comes in, hacks it, steals your plane, and then or just uses it against you? It just leaves uncertainty when coming into the reliability of having an onboard, not like an onboard computer system instead of a pilot. So one of his other claims is that UAV's long loiter time allows for better intelligence gathering and target selection through the removal of onboard crew. So that's also kind of what I talked about with the Marines and Navies, but this is another instance where in Afghanistan, just from the period of January 2012 to February 2013, so just a year span, there was 200 deaths by drone strikes, and 35 of those were only were the targets that they were going for. So that's 165 civilians that were killed for airstrikes. That's almost 82%. I think that's way too high to fly a plane so high overhead that you're just looking at a little camera and shoot. I think it's ineffective. And then, I'm sorry. So also another thing with hacking, EMPs. When you're using a data link, it allows for lag or glitch, and say it's even like a 0.005 glitch, like lag. That can mean him turning one slightly wrong turn and hitting something or whatever it may be. And then if an EMP is used, an EMP is an electromagnetic pulse. And so what this does, it shoots out like a pulse of electrons, and it kills out all electrical interference. So power grids will go out, everything electrical just goes down. So what happens if you fly in your drone fighter jets, they shoot out an EMP and they all just crash. So I don't know how effective that is. I guess technically you can do it with someone who's an onboard pilot because they have computer systems, but I would assume they'd have an override system to go manual. And then another thing involving hacking is that even today, our nuclear power plants are still using 1960s computers. So they're using 8-inch floppy disks still, because they're using this because it's unhackable. You can't hack into something that is not even connected to the internet at all. But I'm sorry, I kind of got wavered away from my next thing that I was going for, but the UAV's long loitering time allows for better intelligence gathering and target selection through the removal of onboard crew. So this is an invasion of privacy as well. This leads into a TED Talk that I actually watched. Daniel Bowden talks about how governments are even we see in the media today, they're not really transparent. You hear oh, drone strike in Afghanistan, or drone strike in Islam, whatever it may be, and they're not really clear of who did the drone strike or what it may be. And we hear different stories about, say, Russia shooting down a drone and no one knows whose drone it was. And the governments are obviously not going to say anything because we don't want any more tension to build between us. So this just creates more tension between us, and this goes for an unsafe environment. Overall, I do agree with UAVs, a lot of it, but they do have a lot of flaws that need to be worked out. It's a great idea, but just the fact that hackability, as well as other implications with identifying targets, is an issue with this. Thank you.
Well, you start off pretty effectively identifying the proposition and going to your own secondary claim about the need for human experience involved in that. I thought that that was not a bad way to go, but you are dependent here on the notion that the friendly fire would not have occurred without or if there had been humans involved in the process or in the pilot seat. And I'm not sure that you really demonstrate that. You suggest that it might be the case, but that's a very hypothetical circumstance or scenario that you're drawing there. I do think that there is some information that might be relevant, like if there are time lag issues or if there are questions about the ability of the technology to make identification on the ground or to check those sorts of things, that this might be a problem. But you don't really show anything like that. You kind of hinted some of those things might be possible, but there wasn't any data on that. And I thought that that was a little bit problematic. The idea that human eyes are necessary to be there on the ground, I think that that's not a bad idea. To ensure that we get the right folks and don't make mistakes, that kind of thing. But you know, it's kind of speculative at this particular point. I did think that later on you had some good information that might have supported that point also. The argument about hacking links is also very hypothetical. I do think that it does suggest that there are potential problems, although we're back to the same problem that you come up with later, and that is, well, so couldn't you do the same thing with the computer systems on board existing planes? And I guess the assumption is that you would have a human being there who would be able to override any such hacking that went on. Again, it seems pretty hypothetical, and I'm not sure that it's a unique harm because of unmanned aerial vehicles. The lag time thing you get into a little bit. You talk about the Afghanistan example, and you got 200 deaths and only 35 of them were intended victims. So I thought that's a good statistic. 82% are collateral damage. But is that because they were unmanned flights? That's the thing that I think is missing here, that there was not enough information to show that human resources would have changed that, or the resources on the ground or in the planes would have changed that relationship. That would be something that would be a lot more effective. The EMP thing seems to apply to other planes as well. I'm not exactly sure there's any way that you get around that one. That's that manual override suggestion there, but if a plane's dependent on electronic technology to fly, doesn't matter whether or not there's a pilot there, the electronic technology goes out of place. Then all of a sudden we're talking about domestic civilian nuclear plants and their old technology, and then you just abandoned that entirely, so it seemed to come out of nowhere, exist for no reason, and then disappeared down a rabbit hole. So we don't really need that information. And then you do come back to the notion of there might be a threat to invasion of privacy, but your information here is really ambiguous. It says, okay, so we don't know who shot down the drone, we don't know whose drone it is, but that doesn't seem to have much to do with the privacy issue. It seems to be going off on another tangent. All right, thank you. Jonathan.